yesterday? Her guest was that guy who wrote The Secret.
No, I had a date with an octopus. But don't ask.
I'll tell you the secret to life, Tia. Stop looking for one. It doesn't exist.
Well, good morning, Miss Sunshine.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
How's your son, Leslie?
Andrew's fine. I haven't heard from him in a few weeks, but that's normal, I guess. Now, I do have an announcement to make.
Uh-oh.
What now? You've been in that meeting with our esteemed editor for a dog's age.
Believe me, I was there. I know how long it was. I had to listen to Ellen for 2 hours.
Let me guess. This means we're going to get stuck doing another one of those thankless jobs.
Remember 2 years ago when we ran that essay contest on the topic of the best childhood babysitter?
Oh, no. Not another essay contest.
Verily, thou speakest true.
Wait a minute. Not the Mother's Day contest that the publicity department has been running.
I'm afraid so. We've been charged with selecting the finalists.
Why do they always drop the most criminally sentimental slop on us at the last minute?
I don't get it. I thought Ellen hates her mother. Why would she want to run with something like this?
Hated, past tense. Her last shrink convinced her that all of her problems could be traced back to her relationship with her mother. Her new shrink says that's infantile and passé.
So where does the Mother's Contest come in?
Ellen's current couch doctor suggested that as an editor of a women's magazine, she has everything at her fingertips to prove his thesis.
Which is?
The effect of mothers on their daughters is negligible in the negative, and the effect for the better is in the positive.
What does that mean?
So, in other words, this isn't just an essay contest. This is psychotherapy for our editor.
All right, the decision's been made. We'll process the entries in this department. Best people upstairs will take care of rules, publicity, yada, yada, yada.
Okay, this isn't anything like the babysitter contest.
What do you mean?
I mean, I don't know if I can keep on reading some of these.
Which is it? The ones that praise their mother's role in making them the success they are today? Or the ones that read like Mommy Dearest, forcing them to overcome their early childhood to become the success they are today?
Settle down, Barb.
Just being honest.
Mine have really been interesting.
Well, some of them actually make me feel really good. My mother died when I was a baby, so I missed out on all the things these women are describing.
Let's not forget all the negative things you missed.
Would it help if we broke it down into categories?
Spoken like a former librarian.
One like what, Leslie? Tall, short, fat?
No. Funny, angry, heartwarming, all the usual mush, and complaints.
How about psychotic?
Can we please get serious?
Serious? I got a serious one. My mom was one of 8 children, 2 brothers and 5 sisters. My grandfather would tell me that Mom was the only one of his daughters who would drop everything she was doing to spend time with him, a concept she has definitely passed on to me. Little did I know when I was 10 how important those words would be. One cold Saturday morning in January, the world that I had known for 15 years changed dramatically. My dad at the age of 54 had a massive coronary and would not survive through the next morning. Here we were, just the 3 of us now, a teenager, a 9-year-old brother, and a 45-year-old unemployed widow. How are we ever going to survive? No job, no car, $300 in a savings account, half of that frozen, and 2 children in private schools. They say that you block out situations that are very painful, and I have come to believe this is true, since I have hardly any memory of that year of high school. What I do remember is how incredibly strong my mom was. With the help of neighbors, she was able to acquire a job, working as a typist for a printing company, with an unbelievable salary of $1 per hour. Wow. Since we had no car, her mode of transportation was 2 buses. Overtime was not an option, it was a necessity for the finer things in life like food, clothing, shelter, and oh yes, tuition. She was even mugged one night on her way home from work. That didn't stop her. She was back in the office the next day. Now that I'm married and have 2 children of my own, I wonder how she always managed to do it all. The house, the job, the finances, vacation. I'm so truly awed by what she accomplished all alone.
That's impressive. Now see, that's an example
Well,
of...
I have a nun here.
A nun? Do they have mothers?
Oh, shut up. Of course they do.
Both of you shouldn't say things like that.
What? God gonna strike me dead?
No, but a nun might.
Well, let me tell you, this is one hip nun. She sent us a DVD with a note attached.
Cool.
What does the note say?
It says, one of God's greatest gifts, I think, is memory. The ability to recall events of the past. Cherished memories. And I loaded it already on the DVD. Take a look. Oh, it's this. We need a new player, don't you think?
I think.
Let me try it again. Well, you know what? Let me read it for you. She sent a copy of that. My fondest memory of my mother is that she always had time to do whatever had to be done with happiness. My memories of my father are vague, as he died when I was 9. We were an affluent family living in Bergen County, and even had live-in help during my early childhood. When my father died at the young age of 52 in 1952, all the glitz and glamour came to a screeching halt. My 2 brothers married shortly after my father's death. So there we were, the 3 women musketeers, my mother, my sister 19, and myself 9. My mother was faced with selling our home and no money benefits. So off we started on our new adventure, and all it would hold for us in the future. My mother procured a position at the local florist, where she remained employed until her death in 1967. The memories are vast. The financial struggles, the raising and educating of 2 daughters, and the day-to-day happenings. My mother was the glue and the inspiration for us all. Her philosophy was to greet each day with happiness and do for her family and others always with a smile. She truly believed and lived her days fulfilling her philosophy of searching, finding, and procuring everything with happiness and success. I remember vividly the day I told her of my confused desire to become a sister of charity. In her quiet, loving, strong voice, she said, "All I can tell you is to pursue what you believe will make you happy, and if you follow this and are happy, then this is what God wants you to do. Every obstacle will be removed, and you will be happy and succeed. I did, I have, and I am. Thank you, Mom."
You know, actually, most of these don't seem to fit into what you would call categories. I don't know about what you have, but I have some no fathers, incredible stepmothers, eulogies, and even a panegyric.
A what?
Skip it.
I think we're wasting our time looking for categories.
Why do you say that?
Because I get the feeling that we're going to be constantly going from the sublime to the ridiculous and back again. Case in point. My mom, Anna, took a great deal of pride in her appearance. Always the right dress, jewelry to go with it, hair perfect. And she was very proud of her shapely legs. Well, the years took a toll on her legs. Some small, rather purple veins appeared. And to add to the problem, she was bitten by a swarm of red ants. This left brown splotches on her legs. One weekend, Mom went to the beach with her niece and nephew. Everyone was dressed in their bathing suits, waiting for my mom to appear. Well, she did, looking lovely in a stylish bathing suit, but she had on pantyhose. When questioned, she replied that no one would notice because it looked like she had a tan. And besides, it made her feel better because no one could see the brown marks. So they all went into the water, having fun, jumping into the waves. When they all returned to the beach chairs, everyone burst out laughing. What had happened was that the water had dragged the pantyhose down, and they had bunched up and sagged, making my mother look like she had wrinkled legs. Instead of getting upset, she too laughed and shrugged it off. But that was my mother. She could always laugh with everyone and laugh at herself.
So what was that an example of? The ridiculous or the sublime?
Neither.
You know, sometimes it's best not to think about it. Just enjoy the task at hand.
When I was a little girl, I looked very different from the other girls my age and the pretty visions I saw on television and in the movies. I wanted to be a fairy princess, but there were some problems. Instead of having long, flowing hair, mine was straight and very short. Instead of wearing dresses, I wore hand-me-downs from my brother. I was convinced that I looked indistinguishable from a boy and was often mistaken for one. I tried desperately to persuade my mother to let my hair grow long, only to repeatedly hear, "You can take care of your hair and have whatever length you want." One year for my birthday, my grandmother gave me a gift. It was a suit. As with other gifts that hadn't appealed to me at the moment, I thanked her, put the box aside, and played with my toys, and never gave the suit another thought. Until one day, when we were getting ready to visit my grandmother, and my mother pulled the suit out of my closet. This time, I got a closer look. First of all, it was brown. I cannot think of a color that was more offensive. Only boys wore brown. Second, it was a suit. Only boys wore suits. And finally, it was just plain ugly. There was a brown and tan plaid shirt with a brown vest and matching brown pants. There was not a hint of lace or satin in sight. So I told my mother that the suit was hideous and I wasn't going to wear it. Not now, not ever. My mother told me that it was a gift and I had to wear it to my grandmother's house. I don't quite remember what happened after that, although I do believe it had something to do with me falling on the floor while screaming and crying. I think I blocked the rest of that day out of my mind to prevent my psyche from further damage. I will, however, always remember what she told me. This is a gift, and you need to be grateful for the things that people give you. But I never bought or wore anything brown until I was well into college.
What a nice life lesson.
What? Staying away from brown? I could have told her that.
Fashion is a form of ugliness so intolerable that we have to change it every 6 months. Oscar Wilde.
There is nothing wrong with learning to be grateful, Barbara.
We all learn different lessons. I know I sure did. What would anyone learn from an essay I'd write? Oh yeah, that would be interesting. Mother. Well, I could start by saying that I'm a product of a divorced mother who had many obstacles to overcome. She was from a working class family with many problems. Lack of money, lack of an education, lack of goals were all part of her social world. Trying to cope with life on a weekly and monthly basis was a challenge. My mother married my stepfather when I was just 5 years old. My stepfather also had very little education, and he used guilt as a means to control my oldest sister and myself. The usual being a good girl meant so many things, and it was so confusing. If people had wants or needs outside my parents' goals or thoughts, they were considered stupid, irrelevant, and comments were often made like these.
Who do you think you are, wanting things that you can't have and don't need? People like us don't need to concern ourselves with those things. It's a waste of time, and that's sinful.
After 2 other children arrived in the family, the needs were even greater and the financial strain was more difficult. The males were looked up to in our household, and my mother was the product of, they know best. My mother, as was typical of that time, let the flow of our lives center around my father's image of what the family should do on a daily basis. I guess my mother's life was not easy.
Damn right my life wasn't easy. I worked long, hard hours at the textile factory. I gardened and canned and sewed and knitted for 6 people.
She didn't have a lot of help from my stepfather with the chores around the house. Her days were long, with so many tasks. I did absorb hard work, responsibility, a love of nature, honesty, and many other fine value systems. And I could pass those on to any children I might one day have. All these and more came from my mother. I guess I am grateful for what I did receive. Life is not easy.
Feeling better?
Is it 4:30?
No.
Well then,
I know this is a drag, people, but there are some lighter moments to share. This one's for you, Audrey.
Oh, you gotta hear this one. She is 85 years old and is still one of the most fun-loving people to hang around with. Yes, I do hear the latest market reports.
Cream cheese is on sale for 99 cents.
Or,
I wouldn't spend what you people pay for coffee.
despite these regular pronouncements, my mother, more often than not, surprises and entertains with her unique philosophy on everything. Oh, you'll hear about it, whether you want to or not.
My mother visits us in the spring when she works up the courage to get on an airplane. She leaves her lovely, cold condo in Florida. Do I misspeak? No. Most seniors I know like warmth and heat and sweaters. My mother keeps her condo in Florida cold enough to hang me. The ceiling fans are always on takeoff speed. Her neighbors keep their visits short and sweet. Otherwise, they would lose feeling in their extremities if they stayed too long. And when Mom is around, we have to get used to what I call mom speak.
Are we going to Mazzaro's today?
Mom, it's not Mazzaro's, it's Mrazzo's.
Whatever, I like it better than Shopwell.
There is no shop well, it's shop right.
So what, I like Mazzaro's better.
We also have to remember Mom's security issues. My mother is compelled to lock any door, any time, any place. This past June, she and her very happy son-in-law were stuck on my front porch for hours until I arrived home from work.
Explain to me again why Mike doesn't lock the front door when he's on the porch, and why he doesn't carry a key with him at all times?
Compounding the problem was her need to use the facilities. Mom, why didn't you go next door to the neighbors?
What do you mean? You expect me to use a stranger's bathroom?
Getting enough sleep and doing too much housework are also important areas of commentary.
My sister and I kid each other how we perceive each other to be so much like Mommy. Not me, cries each of us defensively. We don't want to be associated with the negative character traits. Yet, would be thrilled to have half of her sense of humor, her joie de vivre, and her determination to live life to the fullest.
That's really great. You know, even if I had memories of my mother, I'm not sure I know how to put it into words like these women are. I mean, where do you begin? And how do you make it so using the neighbor's bathroom?
Simplicity, simplicity, simplicity. As Thoreau said, take this one here. She takes a little kernel of a story. It was a bitter cold day and had snowed the evening before. One of those real northeastern snowstorms that sort of paralyzes cars and other moving vehicles. But the weather was just wonderful for making snowmen and sledding down our street. I couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old, but I can still see our snow-covered street and feel the biting wind in my face. Mom had to go to the drugstore at the corner, and I really wanted to go with her. So she bundled me up in my snowsuit and mittens, and then plopped me on my brother's wooden sled and took me for a ride down our street. We arrived at the pharmacy, very cold and red-cheeked. For some reason, I can't remember what Mom had to buy. It may have been a prescription for medicine of some kind. Perhaps one of my siblings was sick, but that seems a bit foggy now. Before she paid the cashier, Mom told me to pick out something I would like from the candy counter. There were so many different types of candy, M&Ms, Milky Way, Snickers, Mason Mints, and malted milk balls. But my eyes fell on a yellow wrapper, Sky Bar. It seemed huge to me then, with 4 kinds of flavors wrapped in a geometric bar of milk chocolate. There were caramel, fudge, marshmallow, and peanut sections, connected like a bridge over a bumpy road. It was like a treasure, and I found it. Or Mom actually permitted me to have it. What a treat that was, all the way home, sitting like a royal princess in my snowsuit on the frozen hard sled. I ate every piece of that candy and loved it. I think I even equated that candy with a connection to my mother. Chocolate equals love. How I wish there had been more days like that, she and I alone having fun. That scene came alive every time I saw a Sky Bar in a store. It brought back a great memory. Sky Bars. They're very hard to find these days. I'm not sure they make them anymore. I keep looking for the candy, for the sled, for my mom.
Oh, that is so sweet.
It gave me a toothache.
Of course, then we have another childhood memory, not so sweet. On my 25th birthday, my mother said, "Since you're officially an old maid, I'm taking you to the city to see a play."
I suppose this is your way of consoling me?
She would relay my father's disappointment with my choice of boyfriends matter-of-factly, and then, after we broke up, inquire about their whereabouts.
Whatever happened to that Dan? Or Matt? He was great.
You hated them.
Are you sure you're not pregnant?
No, Mom. I just like my beer.
You know, you can always move back in with me and your dad. I bet you could be a great painter or writer even. Do you even do those things anymore. You were so good at them in college. Oh, you have no manners. I can tell. You and your roommates live like sluts.
No, Mom. Actually, we're raging lesbians.
Sometimes you talk crazy.
Crazy? So for all these years, my brother has been lying to me. I'm really not adopted after all.
Okay, now that's a little more like it. A little angst, a little resentment, and a little Heineken.
Oh my, this one's about SEX.
Speaking of lesbians,
Don't listen to her, Tia.
But
It's okay. We all know what it is.
Thank God, something interesting at last. Lead on, McDuffin, read it.
do you think I should?
oh, damn it, read it.
As I look back at my early adolescence, I recall a particularly memorable day with my mom at the local soda fountain. We had ordered ice cream sodas. Mine was strawberry, which at the age of 12 was my favorite. She had chocolate, which was hers. I was in junior high, that glorious time when your body is in an upheaval and you're desperately trying to cope with all the changes. I had heard whispered remarks in school about sex. Although I already knew about menstruation, I didn't quite get the whole picture about the birds and the bees. I was a good girl and shy and would never have talked about sex with any of my girlfriends. Fortunately, I had a mother who would always answer my questions and was not embarrassed talking about sex.
So how's your soda, Mom?
Wonderful as usual. Yours?
It's okay, I guess.
You guess?
No, it's great. It's great.
It's only a soda, honey. It doesn't need an endorsement.
A what?
Never mind. Is something bothering you? You seem a bit distracted.
Yes. No! Rats. Well, you see, I've heard the girls at school talking, and I think they're goofy. So, do you mind explaining how this sex thing works?
Yes, of course.
No, that's disgusting. I'm never going to do that. Yuck!
Honey, when you get married and you fall in love, it'll be just fine. You'll even enjoy it.
Needless to say, my parents had a long and loving marriage. I have been equally blessed, and best of all, my mom was right.
That's not how I remember it.
I remember that either.
Stop it! This is really, really important stuff.
What are you getting so touchy about, for God's sake?
Are you all right, Tia?
Actually, I'm more than all right. I didn't want to say anything until I knew for sure, but Walt and I are going to have a baby. I'm almost 3 months pregnant.
Oh,
That's wonderful.
Congratulations. I'll have to write to my son and tell him.
Why would you do that?
Because any good news is important when you're away from home like he is.
Just like these essays. Right, Audrey? Can we please go on reading some more important messages about Mom?
Important is right. What these women say is important. At least to me it is. Hell, it's damn important. I have no frame of reference going from one foster home to another like I did. There's obviously so much responsibility that goes into being a mother, let alone a really good mother. How do you know what is important and what isn't? Do I punish the child for putting a waffle in the VCR? Do I laugh when she comes down the stairs in the middle of a party stark naked? What have I gotten myself into?
What was important? Sports were important.
Not just sports. Baseball was important. Remember how you and your brother and I would walk over to Yankee Stadium on Saturday for the games? It was great. Of course, your brother did have a problem with it. I don't know why he objected so much to my talking to the people around us.
Maybe it was because you always lectured us about not speaking to strangers, that you did it everywhere we went.
Oh, yes, I guess that might have had something to do with it.
Funny, I haven't thought about that in years. They were great times.
Do you remember what else was important? I'll tell you what was important. Chocolate.
I guess chocolate was important, at least in my family. My mother made homemade chocolate cake, chocolate cookies, chocolate pudding, and chocolate chip pound cake. She used to say it was a family chocolate gene. But much to her consternation, my brother did not inherit this gene. And worse yet, he preferred store-bought cake to homemade.
I know what was important to my mother. Reading was important. Look at Nana, she would say. She's over 70 and works hard all day. Yet the first thing she does in the evening after dinner is read her newspaper from cover to cover. I can still see my mom with my brother in the carriage taking me to the big building on 145th Street between Amsterdam and Broadway. It was a very important day, for I was finally old enough to get my own library card like my mom had. She even let me go in alone. Ah, what a moment. The smell of wood and books filled the room. It was all mine, and it was free. I got so excited, I grabbed the first books I saw. When the lady at the desk checked out my book, she asked if I was sure these were the ones I wanted. And I said yes. When I went outside and showed my mother my choices, she doubled over in laughter. It seems all my books were in a foreign language. But we looked at the pictures, and she saw if I could recognize any of the words, and I learned to be more careful in the future. Ah, the books and the stories. And the music. Music was important. Every Saturday during opera season, the radio filled our apartment with the music of Verdi and Puccini from the Metropolitan Opera House. During the summer, we'd go to the free outdoor concerts to see and hear the great classical performers of the day. It was the phonograph playing Bing Crosby, Nat King Cole, Mario Lanza, and Mom's favorite album, Johnny Mathis, singing both the Our Father and the Full Negre. I can still see us as we did the cleaning and baking, as we listened to the music that always filled our small apartment.
I wonder if I can figure out what was important to my mother. It's not so hard, really, because the first thing that pops into my head is school. Education was important. The center of education in our apartment was the kitchen. That's where she heard our spelling words and our times tables every night as she washed the dishes or ironed clothes. Sometimes it was geography. She loved geography and knew the capital of every state. Another favorite was history. She taught us that history was one big story that hadn't ended yet. She agreed to help me go to college, despite the continued financial burden it meant. That's what parents are supposed to do, she would say. Give their children the preparation to be successful in life. God, how did she do it? Work all day and then have time to work with us at night? I guess it's because that's how she was raised. Dear Lord, Tia is right. This is important.
Companies have trademarks that make them easily recognizable. Mothers are like that. Companies do it to sell products. My mother did it to cope with life's many challenges. Her trademark was that she could always create something out of little or nothing. It didn't matter if it was making an outfit or figuring out how to take 2 children and her on a vacation with limited funds. The result was that, like many others who joke about it, my brother and I didn't realize how poor we were. Faced with a problem, my mother always came up with a plan of some sort. For instance, since I had been miserable attending our local parish grammar school, my mother agreed to my going to a small, all-girls convent high school out of the neighborhood. It turned out to be a wonderful choice for me, but an incredible sacrifice for my mother. She had to work 2 jobs just to pay the tuition. Unfortunately, there were the surprise expenses. One of these surprises came in the spring of my freshman year, a tea dance for the freshman class. Everyone had to attend, and it was to be a dressy affair, complete with hats and white gloves. In the 40s, a young lady was not considered dressed correctly without a hat and a pair of white gloves. The problem that I had none of the aforementioned articles. How could I go to this dance? I had 2 problems. I didn't have the clothes, and truth be told, I was scared to death of putting my social dancing skills to the test. A year of Miss Bloss teaching 25 girls how to do the foxtrot, the waltz, and the samba with each other wasn't the same as doing it with one of the young men recruited from the local boys' school. One problem at a time, the outfit. The gloves and the hat were to be the easiest. My mother had a pair of nice white cotton summer gloves, and they fit me. The hat was next. She rummaged around on the top of her closet and found a big box of her old hats. Out came this hat with some sort of a brooch that held a large feather in place. Mom, don't worry. We'll take the brooch and the feather off, and it will be a simple black Juliet cap. She was right, of course. Once the feather and the brooch were gone, it was a nice black hat, and it fit. It even worked to hold my mop of hair in check. By the way, this incident was also a learning experience, something my mother did with uncanny regularity. The Juliet cap style hat referred to the style of hats worn in the era of Romeo and Juliet. This meant that as my mother snipped and clipped and tried the hat on me several times, I got the story of the play. This still left us with the dress. The problem was again on 2 levels, lack of money, and I was inordinately tall, 5'10", for a teenage girl in the 40s. I was never able to find anything long-waisted enough to fit right, even when we had the money. My mother pondered the problem for a few days and arrived home one night from work with the announcement that she had an idea. My mother had been a model in the late 20s and early 30s and had several beautiful outfits that she kept in a garment bag in the back of the closet. As a child, I had gotten caught several times trying to play grown-up with these elegant gowns. Now, my mother was taking the sacred bag from its hiding place and pulling out a long, black peau de soie gown. Black? Was my mother going to let me wear a black dress? Stand up straight. Let me just see how much length we have for this full part of the skirt. As I remember, the gown had some sort of a draped bodice and a drop waist with a lavishly full skirt attached. Perfect, my mother announced. What's perfect? I'll cut the top of the gown off and use that material to make the waistband and a cummerbund. The full skirt part comes down to right above your ankle, making it perfect length for today's style. And it has enough fullness, you won't even need one of those crinolines. For those of you who think a cummerbund is something worn with a tux, in the old days of the 40s and 50s, girls wore them, and crinolines were petticoats that made all our skirts stand out like hoop skirts. It was the style, what can I say? Mom had a plan. It wasn't a matter of would this work. If my mom had figured it out, it was a given. It would work. A couple of nights' work and the skirt was ready. It even rustled like the dresses worn by actresses in the movies. The next step was the blouse. My mother had one white blouse that she saved for special occasions. It was a long-sleeved white crepe blouse with a pilgrim collar. As always, my arms were too long for the sleeves. My mother convinced me that with the white gloves on, it wouldn't be noticeable. We tried the complete ensemble on, and it fit. There's something missing. You need something to pull it all together. I thought it was pretty together as it was, but I knew better than to argue. My mother stood there scrutinizing her tall, skinny 14-year-old daughter in her first tea dance outfit. Then with a snap of her fingers, she was back into the dark recesses of the closet. When she emerged this time, she had a huge candy box. This proved another of my mother's theories, that we should never throw anything away, because you never knew when it would come in handy. The lid of the box was covered by a huge rose-colored velvet bow. Off came the bow, and with the help of a few discreetly placed safety pins, I had a bow on my blouse. She was right. It pulled it all together. I went to the dance in my mother's clothes, and not only did no one notice, but many of my classmates gushed over my stunning black skirt. And that bow, how did you ever think of that? So all I had left to worry about was dancing with a boy.
They say the clothes make the woman.
Oh, please, don't make me sick.
What's your problem?
Too many of these stories are tied up in that same nice, neat little bow. The mother-daughter relationship is far more complex than that. Where's the rebellion, the acrimony, the anger?
Look, Barbara, just because you and your mother don't get along.
Get along? You've got to be kidding.
That doesn't mean it's the case with everyone. Some mothers and daughters have perfectly normal, even healthy relationships.
I just want something that isn't quite so Brady Bunch. Is that too much to ask?
Did you ever think that these people are writing from the heart? Concentrating on the good rather than dwelling on the bad?
And besides, some things are not always as they appear.
What do you mean?
I'm just saying we have a tendency to categorize relationships when this whole motherhood thing is hardly one-dimensional. Not every mother is June Cleaver, but by same token, neither is she Ma Barker. We each have our own preconceived ideas as to what moms should and shouldn't be.
You're losing me.
All right, for instance, stepmothers. They're moms, but what pictures do we have?
Margaret Hamilton and the Wizard of Oz?
The Queen and Snow White?
No. Joan Crawford. No more wire hangers.
Well, here's one that could change your mind. My stepmom came into my life when I was a child of 8 years old in 3rd grade. She was only 10 years older than me and took on her plate a lot with 3 motherless, wild Indian, prankster-type children with an equally crazy father. We had been alone for so long that we thought we knew all the answers, and if we didn't, we could fake it well enough to get by. My stepmom is soft-spoken, kind, gentle, and so thoroughly compassionate that she got us to listen to her rather than fight with her. Life is too short to hold a grudge or take it out on someone else. She won't remember this, but when I was in medical school, I had a terrible fight with my father and hadn't talked to him for a year. I didn't even go home for Christmas. She called me one day as she was going in for major surgery on her back. She gently asked me to please call my father as she was having surgery, and if something happened to her, she didn't want to die knowing I was not talking to my father. Her utmost selfless acts have always kept the family going at whatever cost, even in her time of need. Here she was, the one undergoing surgery, and still she was thinking about the family. She wanted to know that her kids, my brothers and me, were talking and being a family. I did call my father, and things got back on track. To this day, she doesn't realize how much of an influence that one little phone call had on me. So in truth, I wasn't calling to see how she was. She was calling me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Barbara.
Did she call collect?
You are bitter, aren't you? Can't you see that she'll make a good mother someday because she had such a good woman as a role model?
Well, listen, it's not just the women who can clue you in on motherhood. I've got a guy here.
Oh, look at you.
Oh, stop it. This poor guy has a real different take on what he learned from mother. And I have it on the DVD player. Take a look.
Did you know praying mantis can fly?
RJ, do you even know how to work the DVD?
Hey, it's not me, it's the DVD player.
I found one crawling up the front door of our house one night. That's all I thought they did, crawl. I tried to gently persuade the graceful bug to move, and in doing so discovered its aerial capabilities. As it fluttered about my head for a few seconds, I let out what can only be described as a girly scream. A high-pitched squeal more suitable for teeny boppers at rock concerts or riders on roller coasters. Not a grown man. Later that night, as I retired with my thoughts, it occurred to me that all of my fears somehow had a direct link to my mother. Dogs, doctors, fire, choking. They all have their unique stories and have become firmly entrenched on my fears list, thanks to Mom. One such story is the stuff of legend in my family. This one has to do with water. On a family vacation to Cypress Gardens in Florida, we took a harmless jungle cruise aboard a small boat. The boats in the park operated on a grooved track, an aquatic monorail system, if you will, for ensured safety. But that didn't stop the thunderstorm. Ah, nature, just when the boat reached the farthest point from shore, the first bolt of lightning flashed across the darkening sky. And thus began my mother's panic attack. A fervent plea to the boat captain to, for the love of God, save her children now. Another simple joy ruined. I do not swim or sail or clam. I do not like to, Sam I am.
The list of fears go on and on.
Please, tell me you're not going to read them all.
Barbara, even a man can learn something from his mother.
Yeah, you know, my mother used to have us lift our feet in the car whenever we drove over railroad tracks.
What the hell does that have to do with anything?
Well, he's talking about fears, right?
Well, I think that's more like a superstition than
Ugh.
most people think.
This is the longest day of my life. Why don't we just all clam up, read the rest of these, or we'll never get through this.
Someone needs a cup of ginseng.
You got anything stronger?
Hold off on that drink. You're gonna want to hear this. I have the same story as the last one, but from a different point of view.
A lot of these are similar to you.
It's probably just a coincidence.
Cypress Gardens, lightning storm, save my children. Does that sound like a coincidence to you? I firmly believe that most mothers are unappreciated. I know my mother wasn't appreciated by my brothers. Not all the time, anyway. When we were kids, they never let up on her. Every time she turned around, they were either fooling with matches or artfully dodging traffic while we played street hockey. Mom also had to be on her toes to snatch them from the jaws of many a wandering dog. They didn't ever seem to notice the constant danger they put themselves in, or the torment that it caused our mother. I distinctly remember one family vacation. Mom's fear of water was common knowledge, but despite this, when the brothers begged to go on a jungle cruise at Cypress Gardens, she not only agreed, she came along. Now, in truth, there were no old man in the sea moments. It was just boats on a groove track in the water. But Mom was scared nonetheless. As usual, my brothers started in, hanging over the side of the boat and teasing Mom. Suddenly, there was a crack of thunder, followed by lightning. My mother started shouting to get us off the boats and onto dry land. What did my brothers do? They kept yelling, "No, no, don't give up the ship."
All right, well, those two, they cancel each other out. Into the circular file.
Not so fast.
We have to narrow these down somehow, Leslie.
Well, listen, I know it won't be easy to make a choice here, but just because they're similar doesn't mean there isn't something of value in each of them. For example, these two women here could be writing about the same mother. The characteristics and the tone of the essays are so similar. Just listen to this one. My earliest memories are ones of tradition, routine, consistency, reliability, and warmth. Prepared lunches, oatmeal for breakfast, baked apple pies on Friday nights, everything homemade. All done in a household of 7 children. Mother staying up an entire night to finish a special outfit on time. Mom on the stepladder, painting and wallpapering or hanging newly made curtains. Always giving credibility to the title of mother and homemaker. Every day met with an inexhaustible well of fortitude that never runs dry. Or this one. One of my earliest memories of my mother involves a bitter, cold winter evening, standing at a bus stop in Brooklyn. With the wind fiercely ripping through us, my mother tucked me under her muskrat coat, and we both giggled. It gave me a feeling of warmth and safety. My mother had a way of always making me feel comfortable and secure. Maybe it was because she was so truly grounded and gave off an aura of quiet strength. When thinking of my mother, there are so many adjectives that come to mind. pride, respect, dignity, and selflessness. Pride was not a feeling of self-importance, but rather a knowledge of who she was and the basis of principles to follow. My mother was never boastful or ostentatious. She was always respectful in her dealings with her family and her peers. I never heard her brag or gossip. Selflessness was a part of my mother's being. She said, "You do what you have to do." She put forth enormous energy in all that she did, even the most mundane of tasks. You see what I mean? Now, seriously, how am I supposed to decide which of these is better? I mean, they're practically the same. And to tell you the truth, it's not that different from how I would write about my own mother.
I'm not surprised.
What if we read something from someone we know? Or worse yet, someone we're related to?
That would be grounds for disqualification.
I wouldn't put it past my sister to write one, or for that matter, my mother. She thought Nana walked on water.
Your Nana? The one who smoked like a chimney, had your mother when she was 14, and had a tryout with the Chicago Cubs during World War II?
That's her.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'd remember this one if we were related.
I can hear the keys of the old Royal typewriter resonating on the kitchen table as I tossed in my bed. As I squinted to see the glow-in-the-dark clock, I could distinguish that it was 3:15 in the morning. The typing provoked a peculiar anxiety as I wondered what my mother's motives for writing were. It stopped as she carried on a monologue, and then the concert in clack sharp began again. I sighed as I wondered whether my mother was inspired, agitated, rueful, or depressed about some event in her life. Was she writing an editorial to the paper over something that aroused her ire, as she had done so often? Or was she writing a poem? Was she writing to a beloved friend with whom she had had disagreement? Or was she finishing an assignment for college, which she bravely took courses well into her adulthood? I can envision her using all caps to mark her impassioned passages, as well as using the red part of the ribbon to bellow out her sentiments. My mother had a pseudonym, Sadie Finucane, as Sadie fervently used words to mark another passage in her life. I dare not interrupt for two reasons. The noblest reason is that writing is a cathartic process that can lose its moment in time. I also didn't want to get out of bed and have a conversation at this hour. I thought it was so nifty that my mother gave herself another name, and that I knew what a pseudonym was at the age of 11. Sadie always stressed good vocabulary and proper pronunciation. I could not go with you, I had to go with you. But even as she celebrated the merits of good grammar, she did have her idiosyncrasies. God, would I die when she would dress like a beatnik, wearing all black. Black boots, black stretch pants, a black fringed top, and she would pick me up from school like this? I would pretend that she was not my mother and feign distress that I was being kidnapped. Just like that commercial today. Is that your mother? No. Sadie was hyperbole personified. Her passion for life significance, as well as her vivid imagination, produced an exaggerated response to existence.
You know, honey, you can come home to me anytime if you find yourself pregnant and unwed.
Ma, I'm only 6 years old. Since my early childhood, Sadie stressed that I should always call my grandmother on her birthday, as she may not have another. My grandmother passed away 2 weeks shy of her 100th birthday. Always open to new philosophies, she embraces everyone that she meets with an engaged curiosity. We experienced an eclectic religious background, as we were members of many houses of worship. With a passion for holidays, she embellishes the house in a fashion that puts Christmas City to shame. This includes a Hanukkah bush, decorated with Christmas ornaments, as well as every device that can emit a sound. One can hear, "What child is this?" while lighting a menorah. We also have Easter chicken soup and black cats with arched backs facing to the wall. Sadie has a heart that knows no limits. I never know who she's going to invite in to sleep in the house. She invites every kid in the neighborhood into her basement to learn how to tap dance. She even saved a boy's life whose clothing had been set on fire in the field behind our house. Sadie is a survivor. She has outclassed breast cancer, pancreatitis, 2 abdominal aneurysms, cardiac stents, arthritis, and Crohn's disease, while always thinking of others. She writes about it, whether it's a literary venture or a letter to someone else.
Sadie now writes on the computer, where the sound of the clackety-clack is now transformed to "You've got mail." She now has a screen name instead of a pen name. Of course, in good keeping, AOL knows her as Martyr98. I know her as the person who gave me life, my friend and my muse.
That's lovely.
I thought you were supposed to be an impartial observer.
Oh, God forbid that I would unduly influence someone.
Well, it's impossible not to project our own experience onto some of these.
True, but just remember, the question is which is the best essay on a mother, not necessarily the essay on the best mother. And remember, this is for Ellen and her shrink, too.
Oh dear, I don't know. There are so many questions and I have no answers.
Why was Mother so conscientious? Mom always helped me with my homework. Whenever I had a difficult problem, she would work with me until I finished. I wished she wasn't so conscientious. I would have much rather to have forgotten the whole thing and gone into school the following morning and told the teacher I just didn't understand the questions.
Why was Mother always so protective? Mother would stay awake until I got home from a party. Oh, she went to bed, but I knew she stayed awake. Why did she worry so? I was 16 and experienced. I knew a lot about life. I could take care of myself. She always wanted to know everything about all of my friends. She would ask so many questions. How embarrassing.
Why was she always there? Mother always applauded the loudest and took most of the pictures at every get-together and ceremony we had. It annoyed me at times, but she always encouraged me to do my best. And when I did, she looked so proud. And when I didn't, she always stood by me. She was always there when I needed a shoulder to cry on.
What? No questions, Barbara?
No. No questions. And I am sick to death of reading this stuff. My mother's life may have seemed ordinary for a woman of her time. She cooked meals, she did her housework, planted flowers and vegetables, sewed her children's clothing, read bedtime stories to them, monitored their studying, and by word and example, instilled in them a love of God, family, and country. She had to share the demanding duties of proprietorship of the family's little general store, but she rose to the extraordinary in her heroic sense of sacrifice for her family, her patient acceptance of God's will in times of pain and hardship, and her devout, unwavering faith in God's providence, and her beautiful Christ-like charity. No one is that good.
Oh, Barbara, you're impossible. Can't you believe in the good in anything?
Ha! I I'm traveling down nostalgia lane, calling up old memories. Thoughts of a woman who, as I matured, moved from mommy to mom to mother. She was a classy lady who drove a '67 T-Bird. Her terrific sense of humor enabled her to deal with and accept the not-so-perfect aspects of her life. She was a strong woman, controlling at times, and always worried about what others thought. We should never pack things in boxes from the liquor store. People might think we drank. She was a marvelous teacher and an exceptional grandmother who at many times was a rock for my daughter. She was the one person that I totally trusted. Her strength manifested itself in many ways. When in the hospital, suffering from congestive heart failure, she firmly informed the social worker that she was not moving to a nursing home. She intended to die right there in the hospital. 2 days later, she did. Like most people, I would love to have an hour now with my mother, in which I could explain many things said and done, or not done, while she was alive. Is it partially to assuage my guilt? Probably. There were times when I was a rotten daughter. She was never anything but a caring and loving mother. She was always there for my dad and me when we needed her. Unfortunately, the reverse was not always true. Oh, for God's sakes, Audrey, turn off the waterworks.
Girl, you're heartless.
Why? Because I don't feel an ounce of guilt about my mother?
You mean to tell me that if your mother were here right now, you wouldn't have something to say to her?
Ew, I'd have something to say to her, but Tia would have to cover her ears.
There's something really sad about that last one. Things left unsaid, the chance to right some wrongs. Barb, even you must see that.
Regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention.
Like I said, heartless.
That is not fair. You don't know what I'm going.
Okay, enough already. I think we're all a bit weary. It's just about quitting time. How about we all take a deep breath? Let's look at these last few essays that we have and see if we can't narrow it down to 3 or 4 so Ellen can make her choice.
Oh my God, I have another nun.
Why do we keep getting all these nuts?
I hear that can be habit forming.
Very funny. What impulse prompted my mother to inform my grandmother that she'd like to be a nun? Equally prompt, grandmother answered, no, you would try immediately to become Mother's superior. Years later, after Mother's death, my youngest brother Leo offhandedly made a statement, enfolding my grandmother's words. If Mother lived in this era, she'd have been a career woman. He was so right. Mother may have made a kind abbess or a modern-day CEO. She would have flourished in such positions. These 2 remarks focus in on Mother's character, yet they give only a sketch of this memorable woman. Subtle strokes with background details and coloring need to make the finished portrait. Mother excelled as a homemaker and cook. In my experience, few cooks I encountered rated with her expertise in preparing roasts, pastries, and puddings. During the winter, we enjoyed the canned fruits and vegetables she preserved in the summer. Her weekdays of washing, ironing, cleaning, and baking enjoyed none of the advantages of modern appliances. She washed and rinsed each piece of clothing by hand, pressed them with an iron heated over the stove, and swept and beat carpets before the age of vacuum cleaners. Our house sparkled with cleanliness and order. She abhorred clutter. Her golden rules she enforced: immediately return to the place where you found whatever you finished.
Big deal. That hardly makes her a career woman.
I beg to differ. She's the epitome of a career woman. She was multitasking long before they even invented that term.
Despite all these chores, she was also the financier of the family. Mother carefully monitored our resources to pay the bills and take care of the necessities for a family of 5.
Why does this sound so familiar?
Of course, it's Because she's George Bailey.
It's a woman.
No, George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life. Everything's always about somebody else. I was reading this one before. Look, she delayed her marriage to take care of her sisters. She converted the third floor of the family home to accommodate her widowed sister. Paid the mortgage off in 10 years. Set aside her stylish wardrobe for more suitable public dress.
Not buying it.
All right, how about this part? On 2 occasions, when neighbor women were dying, she spent the night with each, not leaving until early in the morning after each had breathed her last.
Come on. I don't know any mothers who would do that.
Barbara,
Do you, March? Do you seriously know any mothers who would sit up with some dying neighbor lady? You wouldn't catch my mother doing that. These people aren't real.
That's not the point.
What is?
Maybe this part will make it clearer for you, Barbara. My mother was a woman of prayer. She believed sacrifice necessary to obtain special petitions. I noticed since I sat next to her at table. I saw her fasting from special foods. I think I'm beginning to understand. It's all about sacrifice.
The whole George Bailey thing again.
This is not a movie, Leslie. What these women are writing about has nothing to do with living a wonderful life.
Yes, it does. Can't you see, Barbara? Somehow, some way, every one of these stories comes down to a mother's sacrifice.
Bull! You can honestly believe that all of these women set aside their hopes and dreams for the greater good.
No, to do what was right. Sacrifice. That's what this is all about.
Okay, but what makes this essay for you better than the others?
This part right here. When one finds a worthy wife, her value is far beyond pearls. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and her tongue is kindly counsel. She watches the conduct of her household. Her children rise up and praise her. Her husband, too, extols her. Many are the women of proven worth, but you have excelled them all. That's from the Bible.
Okay, folks, Tia's obviously picked the essay she thinks is the best. Myself, I think we need drama. It sells magazines, and Ellen would love it. And I've got it. Listen to this one.
After my mother's death, it was my responsibility to sort through her things and make sense of a life full of sadness and very little happiness. I will never forget standing in front of her walk-in closet door. That white narrow door guarded a lifetime of secrets. Behind all the dresses and blouses, all neatly arranged, was a worn-out, old, brown, overnight luggage case. In that case held the clues to who my mother really was. In addition to the Nazi occupation, she endured the death of her own mother from cancer and the death of both of her siblings from childhood diseases that could easily be cured today. Most tragic of all, when her father returned from fighting with the French army in North Africa, he was killed by a landmine left behind by the retreating Nazi army. By the age of 15, she was virtually alone in this world. But with the help of Grandmère and the French resistance, that young French girl escaped from France and went to America, where she went to school, got a job, got her nurse's degree, and married into a huge Italian-American family. Years after that can only be reflected upon as memories viewed and stored from the eyes of a young child. My mother was so deeply molded by this new family and their neighbors. Many old wives' tales were practiced as scientific truths. I remember being a victim of one such tale, walking really young at 8 or 9 months of age, a child became bow-legged. Now, the cure for such a thing was warm salt water from the beaches during the summer months. Now, I don't know if it was just natural physical development, but I don't walk bow-legged anymore. There were so many superstitions and beliefs and sayings. As I got older, I realized just how much these beliefs ruled our house. Sundays were very special days. Sundays started off with a command service at the local Catholic church, followed by a full day of eating. Started off with breakfast. Breakfast consisted of black coffee and rich Italian pastries from the local bakery. This may sound wonderful, but as a young tow-headed girl, this black liquid could prove fatal. For I was told that
it could turn my blonde curls black. It is not surprising, therefore, that the sayings, the beliefs, and even certain habits which shaped my mother's life enveloped my home as a youngster. Fortunately, I can look back on these practices and beliefs fondly and smile, knowing I will have many stories to pass on to anyone interested in listening to or reading of the tales of a young French girl who came to this country with a little brown suitcase in hope of finding a new life in a free country. Anyone else want to go out on a limb?
You know, we'll never know these women well enough to judge them because they buried their sorrows. I guess as kids, we were too young to understand that. I think now, that's probably what my mother did.
Audrey?
Too much pressure. Oh, okay. The bee story.
The what?
The bee story. The writer remembered a time when she was younger, watching her mother bring in clothes from the line, and her mother found a bee tucked in a pant leg, buzzing its full head off. Oh, stop it. Fast forward 25 years, and the writer is now folding her own clothes out in the yard, not long after her own mother died, and she thinks to check the pant leg, and sure enough, there's another angry little bee.
How is that important?
The writer was allergic to bee stings.
Oh, please, don't tell me.
Well, look, she could have just tugged at the jeans like most of us would in a rush and suffered the consequences, but she didn't. She couldn't help but think that it was her mother sending her a sign.
So now, her mother is a bee?
Well, my grandmother used to believe that flies were people reincarnated. She burst into tears the day I swatted Jimmy Durante.
Oh. Marge, you've been quick with the pithy statement today. What's your selection?
All right, you wanted drama. Well, I have an Italian immigrant who will trump your French suitcase lady.
Oh no, there's no way you're gonna read that entire thing. It's almost time to go.
My mother should have been educated. She is brilliant without formal education. She would have been dangerous with secondary or post-secondary education. But her father left the family in post-World War I Italy during their Great Depression of 1921. If not for Grandmom's 2 sisters, the rest of the family would have been homeless. This also meant that as soon as she was able, my mother needed to help support the family. So Vincenza went to trade school to learn to be a tailor and a seamstress, professions she practiced for 50+ years. But a childhood was sacrificed. She eventually grew up and met my father. In June of 1942,
I can't take much more of this.
The story is what it is, Barb. What would you have her do?
Cut to the chase, for crying out loud.
and just how would you suggest I do that?
Were you listening to Audrey? She was able to take her favorite one, pathetic though it may have been, and break it down into a summary. Can't you do the same?
Fine. She gave birth, survived the war.
La la la, la la la.
Okay. Here. Here. She defied church edicts by refusing to have more children during the economically depressed era of World War II Italy. She felt it was irresponsible to bring children into the world when there was no means to provide for them. A visiting priest refused her absolution at confession, but she stood her ground. She would rather have been excommunicated than do that to a child. Finally, when the finances became so unbearable, she came to America. She left her entire family behind. But eventually she had her son, and with him came a crash course in everything American, especially education. He would do all the things she had been deprived of back in Italy. From grammar school to law school, she lived vicariously through his trials and his successes. When he received his law degree, she formally retired from her years as a seamstress. Like so many other things about my mother, retirement simply meant another opportunity for her to do things for people. Sure, she loves her trips to Atlantic City, but she balances that with crocheting lap afghans for the, as she calls them, old ladies in the rehab center where she recuperated after her knee operations. At the end of the day, my mother has lived a life tempered by sacrifice. But isn't that the greatest tribute of life? Christian, Muslim, Jew, Hindu, Buddhist, all recognize the act of love embedded in sacrifice. Her life has been happy, a word that comes from the Aramaic and originally translates as blessed. Hallelujah! Blessed are the mothers.
Yes, blessed are the mothers who get up and do it every day without all the drama.
Oh, Christ!
You know, this reads like my own mother. So shut up and listen. You could learn something. When my mother died and we were preparing the obituary notice, the funeral director asked me about Mom's interests and organizations. I had to really think hard, and then it hit me. Her only organization and interest was her family. My mother was the typical homemaker of the 1950s. Dad had to get up at 3 o'clock every morning to work as a Wonder Bread delivery man. And every morning, Mom would make a breakfast of bacon, eggs, and coffee so we could start the day off right. Our house was immaculate, dusted and vacuumed daily. Ironing was done in front of the TV so she could watch her favorite soap operas. Everything was ironed, even the pillowcases. Then she would get busy preparing an early 4 o'clock dinner for us all. Evenings were family TV. Mom would sit on the couch, and either Dad or I would lay with our head on her lap. She was the best back scratcher and hair stroker ever.
Who are these women?
My mother taught me all sorts of lessons. That Daddy and I were a reflection of her. High school, college, be a teacher, always said in one breath. Hard work and education will get you places. Soap and water are cheap. Poverty is no excuse for being dirty. But most of all, I learned how to be a loving, giving wife, mother, and friend. I learned this from the example of how she lived her life.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Okay, everybody calm down. Barbara, you have been bucking us all day. What is your problem?
This stupid contest is my problem.
Well, none of us are too thrilled with it, but it's part of the job. You've done it before. What's so different about this one?
I hate it. That's what's different.
Not good enough.
Leave it. It's my mess. I'll clean it up.
Barbara,
It's personal.
a contest?
No, damn it.
What?
I can't have children. I can't ever be a mother. So what does that say about me? You got an answer for that?
As a matter of fact, I do. You can have children. be a mother.
Didn't you hear me?
Haven't you been listening? It's not about biology, Barbara. Think about what these women have written about. It's not birth, the beginning. It's the day-to-day living. Like Tia said, the sacrifice. That's the treasure, the gift these women give. The ability to take responsibility for a life, to love and to sacrifice. That's not about science. That's who you are. Now, none of us knew about your problem, but I do know what you're going through. That's why I adopted Andrew. It was many, many years ago, and I didn't work here then. He's a grown man now, overseas with his unit. But I never forget what it was like. We were so proud to bring him home. I mean, I don't like to wave a flag about it because that's not who Andrew is, my adopted son. He's my boy, and always will be. And I, too, am in awe of these memories. It just reminds me of the standard these women have set by the way they've lived their lives.
But suppose I can't do this. Look, my mother messed me up because she wasn't like these women.
Look, we all learn from the mistakes. You know how it hurt. So would you do the same thing now? But, well, do you now have a good How to Be a Good Mother manual? Oh, yeah.
You and Bill can adopt. If you start now, maybe we can deliver at the same time.
You think?
I think. What do you think, Barb?
I'll go with Tia's pick.
Hey, it's an Oprah moment. Can we go home now?
Oh, Marge.
Yes, go home.
I wonder what Ellen will think up for us next.
But remember, Ellen must choose which of these essays proves, and I quote, "The effect of mothers on their daughters is negligible in the negative, and the effect for the better is in the positive."
Oh,
Still have no idea what that is.
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Yep.
good night.
Good night.
See you tomorrow.
Good night, Barb.
Good night.
Hey, Leslie, the mail guy just handed this to me. It's addressed directly to you.
What now? Dear Mom, I'm not sure why I'm writing this now. Maybe to feel a little closer to home. Maybe because we have so much downtime here, nothing to do. I can just hear you now. I'll find you something to do. We have plenty to do here, Mom, believe me. We just spend a lot of time waiting for the right moment. It's just as well. We're not always in a hurry to meet the enemy, as it were. Anyway, Dad told me about this essay contest you're having at the magazine. And the next thing I know, I'm writing you a letter. I haven't seen you in such a long time. I wanted you to know that you're the best. I guess a lot of kids think that growing up, that their mom is the best. Time has not changed that for me. My world now is all dirt roads and what's lurking in the shadows. Nowhere the simple beauties of life that you once promised. And yet, you taught me well enough to know the hidden resources of the mind. The mental church, where communication and closeness know no boundaries. You are with me now, I know it. I look at the faces of the villagers as we walk through their neighborhoods, strangers in a strange land. And I can't help thinking what you once told me. People are people. No matter what they may do or think or believe, people are the same. Looking to live a life of significance, looking to connect, looking to love and be loved in return. For that to happen, we must all reach out. I was not sent here against my will. I volunteered. I made that sacrifice because I thought it was the right thing to do. You taught me that. I may not understand the policy of why we are here and why people just can't get along, but I sure do appreciate all that life has to offer. And I appreciate you, Mom. With each mission we undertake, each close call we survive, and each obstacle we overcome, I know you are there with me. I never believed in angels before coming here. I do now. You are the reason I won't give up. You are the reason I won't turn away. You are the reason I am the man I am today. And when I see you again, I will tell you this and much more. I love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.